Blessed to be with you here, Kevin Miller in the morning, joined by Dave Petzo, the Petzo Center, Petzo Financial, man at Petzo Travel, maybe? Maybe you start your own travel business?
I don't think so.
Traveling with Petzo?
No.
No travel.
We used to do those cruises.
Really?
We did 11 of them.
Really? Was it you, John, and Chris? Is that right?
Nope, just
the Petzo Center.
Petzo's, yeah.
Without John and Chris?
Yes. Yeah.
My goodness gracious.
Yeah, just went out.
What was that like?
Oh, it was just super fun. It was. I mean, I really thought they were great, and it was a chance for my kids also. I had young kids at the time.
Sure.
And they all got to see a good part of the world, right?
Your kids before they had kids.
Correct.
Right.
That's right. Exactly. Before the grandkids. Exactly. So yes, but it was great, and we had people would come, who 8 times in a row, until
Sure.
we got too old to travel, stuff like that. It was just great fun.
Now, see, for me, that would be like constantly working because people would want your time and, okay, hey, we're going to the sun deck, and you're not sitting there enjoying the sun deck by yourself. You got, people that you adore and love, but after a while, you go on a cruise to get away from everything.
No, it's a very fair point. You are doing a good bit of work, but people are very, very nice, and they do get that, and they obviously, when you're with your family, give you some space. And but you're quite right. It was the people you're with. You really do enjoy them, and so it's fun. It makes it more fun.
I've got a couple hardball questions for you this morning.
Ooh, okay. From cruising to hardball.
Yes,
all right.
Exactly. It's an eclectic mix here on 107.5 FM 580. And by the way, you can catch Dave on Facebook, Twitter, and every Saturday right here, 8 to 10, Money Matters. The legislature just approved Medicaid expansion, the funding of it. They don't know how much it's going to be. They don't know how many people are going to be eligible. We really don't know if it's ever going to stay 90-10 with the federal government,
right?
With the funding mechanism. Because remember, this is Dave Petzo's favorite word. It's free money, everybody.
Right.
The television and the radio ad said, look, you're going to get free money from Washington. Idaho deserves the free money, so let's vote for free money. So your thoughts initially on the funding of Medicaid expansion as a business owner, as an employer, as a member of our community, how will it impact our economy?
In the long run, it's going to be very negative. There's no question in my mind. It's always the idea, whenever you get in bed with the government, federal government, what have you, it doesn't end well. And what I mean by that is, of course, then they can always take it away, and I think they will. They'll start pushing more funding to the states, or maybe they don't do it that way. Maybe they just have more restrictions, if you will. And then states will have to vote through what they want to cover, which means they're going to cover more. That's what's going to happen in Idaho. You just don't. There's no such thing as magic-free money. There just isn't.
However, should there, and this has been, I had a chance to work over the weekend, which is I had a cup of coffee with someone and actually a few people, and they were saying this is what's really going on in the legislature. Should there be a cap on what we are going to spend for Medicaid expansion? People have said, it started out as 60,000 folks that are eligible. And look, we're not vilifying the people that need the help, but now it's grown to 80,000, perhaps. There's no limit. It's like mini Obamacare.
Right.
So should there be a cap on spending?
Yeah, there should be. There should be a cap on the numbers, and I'm sorry that some people are going to fall through the cracks. That's inevitable. We either decide we're just going to have free medical care, which is not free, of course, and how we're going to pay for it, or we don't. And I don't know why we're running this direction. I just really don't get it. We are getting closer and closer to single pay the way the Democrats want. So it's all this is we voted for getting to be closer to that. And we have not seen any successes around the world. I know people get all excited about the Canadian plan, but that's why the border is lined with clinics, because people can't get any real care. You're not allowed to go get new knees and hips and things like that. Even heart conditions, once you get past a certain age, they don't treat. So that's why they have clinics all along the border. So they're really great at free whatever, physicals and things like that. This is a problem all over the world, and yet we're running headlong into a single-payer plan run by the government, decides who gets what, who's rationing what, how often you can have certain care, instead of individuals with their doctor. I don't understand it. And, Kevin, I'm very, very concerned about it here in Idaho. If that's the case in Idaho, imagine what it's like in California.
Well, not only that, but when we're talking about this on KIDO Talk Radio, you have now clinics in Mexico and Tijuana that if you want to perform something, it costs you $20,000 here. people will go there and pay out of pocket because it's $5,000.
Right. And these are, again, I look, I'm not going to be the guy going down to Mexico for some weird treatments, okay? But
Now, why would you think they were weird?
well, in some cases they are, and they're certainly not authorized. I mean, I don't want to treat cancer with urine tests or whatever it is, things like that. I think that there's a lot of strange things that go on, and I understand that. If people are on their last leg, they're willing to try anything, they're willing to try anything. But but what I'm saying is we don't have the kind of rules and regulations down there, so that won't be me. But in the very long run, the idea of cruise ships parked off of different places around the world that you can hop on with fully staffed, accredited medical folks, I think these are wonderful ideas that are moving forward on a global basis, and I do think that that's going to continue to grow. It's just a business that is flourishing, whether it's over in places like Thailand. It really is flourishing, and these are real deal doctors trained in all kinds of surgeries here in the States, and people can go over there and get them done for a fraction of the cost. Again, they're working on some accrediting and things like that globally, and as they get better and better at it, these to me are the market solutions that we need.
Our great friend Dave Petzo with us. So, as we take a look at the legislature, and they still haven't figured out if there's going to be a cap, if they're going to vote on it, I believe that it should be. What about a spending cap for state government? That's been tried at the local level east of the Great River, where you have this hard figure.
Yeah.
So you would think it would make it more difficult to all of a sudden at the end of the year be $60 million in the hole.
You would wish that you could do that, Kevin. I think practically it's awful hard to put a fixed number. You can always say that the budget can't be exceeded. That's why we also have rainy day funds, is because you just don't know what's going to happen in your state year to year. It's going to be a great year, so revenues are high. It could be a middle of a recession, revenues are low. And then on top of that, you are going to have natural disasters from time to time. They're going to be costly, maybe economically costly. Again, tax revenues go down, or it could be economically as well as you need to kick out some money. So I think again, practically putting a hard number on it doesn't work in the real world.
Dave Petzo joining us, Kevin Miller in the morning here, KIDO Talk Radio. But back to this Medicaid expansion, this is a huge issue that could just blow up. And we'll talk a little bit about that. Now, recently, again, I was doing some research. Actually, I was the co-host of the Inspire Excellence podcast with our friend Tommy Ahlquist. You know who Tommy Ahlquist is, Tommy?
I've heard of him.
Tommy, yes. And we were talking to a young man that was talking about the infrastructure investment in the state of Utah.
Yeah.
And they invested $2 billion, I believe, in infrastructure. I think I have this right. Comparatively, we were like around $200 million in infrastructure. And when I came back at him with, well, look, they've got bigger population there, blah, blah, blah. He said, look, it's just simply the cost of doing business. Now, we don't have the endless resources that, let's say, a bigger state like Utah does. Maybe one day we will. But the idea of investing in infrastructure, and what would that really look like? We say, look, we're tired of the traffic on the connector. I'm stuck in the connector right now. I'm stuck once again. 3 or 4 years ago, it was smooth sailing. We used to laugh about the traffic situation.
Yes.
But coming in now, or coming in from the hinterlands, as Dave Petzo likes to call it, I call it home, from Canyon County or further out in Ada County, it takes you, sometimes much as an hour to get in and get home. It's like a mini Denver.
It is, and becoming worse. I actually was over in the Eagle area this weekend. I know. No, but I'm just saying it was on a Saturday. Oh, wow. Jab me with a stick. I'm telling you, that is waiting through lights on U-stick for two lights and stuff like that. It's a difficult thing. And so I can't imagine every day. You must have to get used to it. But it was a difficult thing for us to drive all the way over there. It really is. And so I know it's a traffic problem, and that's the way it is when you have a growing, booming population. But it exactly reminded me of Denver and all the suburbs around there and how hard it is to get in and out.
Sure, but you take a look at from a business perspective, the developers are going to say, look, we get hit over the coals with impact fees. Nampa looking at raising its impact fees. Meridian already on the shelf for that. And, how do you fix this thing? And then you have states that say, look, we're going to make sure that we keep ours, like Utah. They're very shrewd, looking at us and saying, well, Idaho's further back. We don't have to worry about them, but we're going to keep our competitive advantage by investing big money.
Yeah, and I don't. There's no question that if you're looking at trying to put some kind of new infrastructure in, that you're going to need to have the public / government assistance. But anytime you do this on a large scale basis, you're going to have a whole lot of cronyism. You're going to have corporate welfare, and you're going to have cost overruns that will just blow your mind. It doesn't matter if you're doing another big dig like Seattle did that went months and billions of dollars over. We're going to do the same thing here. It's not, well, we do it good, or Utah does it so good that the $2 billion we have, they're going to be like really great with that $2 billion. Nope, they're going to toss it away just like everybody else. Government can't do it right. They never do, and yet we still have to do certain things with government because there's no way we can do it individually. What's the point of you trying to do it individually? Like every person's responsible for their mile of road. It needs to be a collective.
Well, you talk to some libs, and they want to charge you for the miles that you've used your car. To encourage you to be like Dave Petzo and live in the city of Boise.
Hey, if you have an electric car, it's the only way I know how to do it, right?
Now you're sounding like former Governor Otter. Coming up next, a new bill could force the public to vote on such projects as the Boise Library and the stadium. We'll get Dave Petzo's take on that. If you have a question about your money, 580-5436, 580-KIDO. You're listening to Dave Petzo, Kevin Miller, 107.5 FM, 580 AM, KIDO Talk Radio. All right, we continue on now under management supervision. Dave Petzo with Kevin Miller.
Terrifying.
Jeff the Suit here watching.
I know, it's
making
terrifying.
Sure that your segment is up to snuff.
Feel my blood pressure
Now
up.
you know what I deal with all the time.
Sweating.
Indeed. Let's talk a little bit about this new bill proposed by House Majority Leader Mike Moyle that would require a public vote on, urban renewal. So the Boise Stadium, in other words, if it's financed with urban renewal money, the public would vote on it. Currently, it's up to your friend Dave Beater and his crew. I won't say cronies because Mr. Jeff the Suit is here, but the idea of really rewiring how we fund urban renewal projects.
God, it's a good question, Kevin, because there's two things. We're a representative government. You can't just, every time you want to do something, you have a vote. I mean, that just seems absurd. So is that maybe a slippery slope we're running down? But the idea that the mayor is going to continue to try to have Main Street run down to 2 lanes and no parking for a bike lane, that we're going to go ahead and figure out a way to put up a stadium even though people don't want it, even though the funding's not there, it doesn't appear to be. These are things that I'm not sure how to set that where you have maybe a size of project or an impact of project that would require people to step forward. But again, as a form of representative government, we can't just sit around and vote on everything. That's absurd.
So are you with Mike Moyle or are you with Dave Beater?
I'm with Mike Moyle, but I got to go with having some restrictions on this. We can't be voting for everything. I think it's a difficult question.
I understand you live in Boise, so you've got to be careful. You lived in the land of the free.
Oh, really? Yeah,
right. You lived in the hinterlands.
Where are you now?
What do you mean? Where do I live?
No, right now, at this moment.
In Boise.
Exactly. You be careful.
We
shoot aliens here.
Is that the voice of experience? Anyway, moving on. JCPenney just announced it will close 24 more stores this year.
Mm-hmm. 24.
Is this progress?
I'm going to suggest it's 24 times 10 or 20 or 50. JCPenney's has been gone. It is in real trouble, really big trouble. I don't think they're going to close only 24 stores.
But not worse than Sears.
Yeah, I think they're going the way of Sears.
So on one hand, we have these iconic institutions.
Yeah.
Long before Jeff the Suit was born, called Montgomery Ward. Mm-hmm. We have Sears, we have JCPenney's that are floundering, and yet you have Home Depot, you have Lowe's, relatively new experiences doing well. And
that's the way of retail. Always has been. Retail is one of the toughest things in the whole world to do and to do well. And companies that make it in the long run, they all go out. I mean, Sears was amazing to have lasted 100 years. Nobody else does. And you have to constantly reinvent until you screw up. The level of capital need is so intense. They're borrowing money. Any mistake is magnified. It's a really tough business. And again, I can't believe when I go to a store, and I don't go very often, thank goodness. But when you go, I can't believe that we can get a shirt for $20 or $30. It's astounding. How do they pay for the buildings? How do they pay for all the shipping, making the shirt, all that stuff? And so when you get these shirts and they have to sell them for half that price because it's not in style or what have you, or they just get thrown away, it's huge losses to overcome. So it's deadly dangerous at every turn.
But aren't we losing a sense of community there?
Well, we are. Yeah, we do. I mean, that's part of it. I mean, technology's wonderful. Technology's scary. But to sit around here and worry about the people that made buggy whips, I enjoyed the automobile. It's just that's kind of the way of the world, and it is unfortunate.
Unless you were making the buggy whips, yes.
Exactly. And when you are, then it's personal and it's tough, and I don't like that either. It's just but someday I might be replaced by an artificial intelligence, financial advisor.
Well, the government will save you from that. You're a big fan of the government.
At that point, I would be, yeah. Bail me out.
Bail me out. More coming up. Traffic and weather together.
107's Eric Everett.
And moving right along, Dave Petzo joining us, host of Money Matters, Saturdays 8 to 10 on KIDO Talk Radio, 107.5 FM, 580 AM. Are you familiar with a company called Amazon?
I think I've heard of them, yeah.
So Amazon had this big deal in New York, and then all of a sudden you had the devious little liberals decide that Amazon was not a safe place, unfair working conditions. They didn't want Amazon there unless Amazon was going to pay a lot of money. Amazon walked away, and now I believe they're going to Virginia, home of the, I believe, second largest Micron institution, second only to what they built in Taiwan.
Virginia and Nashville both. They're expanding there, yeah.
So when government offers incentives, now are you a fan of incentives?
It depends. It really does. I think you need to have incentives when you're competing in a world of getting big.
Wait a minute. You're a big money conservative guy.
Absolutely. No question about it.
Isn't that socialism?
It's also part of playing the game.
Yeah.
That is not socialism.
Okay.
It is not. And when you are competing against other places, other states to gather business here, we better have something to give them. Idaho mostly gives, if you will, an easier path forward with allowing, what am I trying to say here, factories to go up within a year or two instead of 10 years of permitting and things like that other states have. So in other words, the regulatory environment is much better here. And that's one of the reasons that Chobani located here. It wasn't because they gave them $1 billion.
Right.
But we have to compete somewhere.
Right, the tax incentives. And it is a big game, and you're competing against other states, most notably the state of Utah. So back to Amazon. We've got a few stories coming out about the proposed Amazon place in Nampa. We hear now that Nampa may get up to 3,000 jobs being an Amazon fulfillment center. Of course, the mayor of Meridian is not mad. She doesn't get mad, but she says, look, Nampa gets Amazon, we get a bunch more traffic.
Right.
Is it worth it?
Yeah, of course it's worth it. You've got to continue to create jobs, and I get what she's saying. It's but at the same time, just because they decided to locate 20 miles to the left or the right doesn't mean you're not going to pick up economic development from them. You're not going to get the direct hit from taxes of a big building that sits there, but you're certainly going to get good economic activity right where you are.
Continuing on, now you've got a complaint filed from to OSHA concerning workplace conditions. This has been a problem with Amazon for quite some time, how they treat their workers. Liberals
eat their own. They tend to. Seriously, you're talking about one of the most liberal companies in the world is Amazon, and they don't pay well. On top of that, you've got the libs hating them in New York. It's a very weird dynamic. You talk a lot to a lot of the conservatives and how the Republican Party split and things like that. I think it's much more unified. I really do. And I just think that people are different, and this is an interesting thing that they are literally out there fighting to keep costs super low, and yet at the same time telling people that we have to increase minimum wage all over the place. So it doesn't make sense to me.
If you make it too expensive, they'll replace you with a robot.
And they already are. These places are. There's no way they can handle all of the packages that they're running through these places. I'm sure you've seen them on specials and seen what these fulfillment centers do. It's all automated. It's amazing. There's hardly any human beings compared to how many packages go through there.
Dave Petzo joining us. Kevin Miller in the morning here, KIDO Talk Radio. Finally, we're getting ready for the big housing season. Snow looks to be over. Let's hope. So, do you think that we'll exceed the median home prices that we had in Ada County, a record even going back to rivaling 2007?
Absolutely, we will. People are still moving here, and so they will. We will continue to go up, but we have seen it slow down. I have a house next to me that's been vacant for a year. And yes, there's certain issues with it, but at the same time, it's not so hot you can't find anything. And as I was out in the hinterlands over the weekend, right?
Eagle.
But that's a hinterland.
Eagle, Idaho.
It was out way past there, almost clear out to Star, which is way, way out there. And so, at any rate, you're just seeing subdivisions popping in everywhere, Kevin. And so they are meeting the demand, and I think that. But as far as thinking housing will not continue to increase in price, I think that's ridiculous.
A record year coming up for home prices.
Absolutely, no question.
Finally, back to our subject that we started with, transportation. We're building a lot of subdivisions.
Yep.
And everybody's making a ton of money.
Mm-hmm.
Where are the roads? Where is ACHD? Where is Ada County? Where is even the state government on this?
Well,
look, you're looking at these cul-de-sacs and these neighborhoods, and you're getting, lots of cars going through, whether it's Paramount and Meridian or in Eagle or in Boise.
I know. We're behind. We're behind the curve. Everywhere is behind the curve. Whenever you have growth, you're always going to be behind the curve because you need new roads, you need new bridges, you need new everything. And you're going out to new subdivisions in one direction, and that takes all of the resources for 1 year. You're trying to play catch-up in the older places. It is just constant catch-up and constant complaint, and they never will solve that problem.
Here I was going to ask you for a solution.
I don't think there really is. Yeah,
that would shut it down for a while.
That would, other than the financial problem.
You talk about
then
home
what are you going to
prices,
pay for it?
Home prices going through the roofs.
It would
shut
go
down
like
growth.
That's what happens in the big cities all the time, and you really don't. They don't want growth. Not next to me.
Right.
Once you've arrived and you have money, you don't want new people showing up. They might think different than you.
Dave Petzo, catch him Saturday, 8 to 10, right here. Money Matters anytime. The Petzo Center, Petzo Financial. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Kevin.
You're listening to KIDO Talk Radio, 107.5 FM, 580 AM. Good morning, Maggie.
Good morning, Kevin.
Blessed to be with you, Kevin Miller in the morning, from Holly, who emails me, Kevin at KIDOTalkRadio.com. Reportedly, the government plans to take funds from the Millennial Fund to fund part of Prop 2. And that's, again, the issue that I'd like to share with you. And I have been negligent in going over the funding of the government. You're going, Kevin, I need you to wake me up. I understand that, and we will get to some issues at 580-5436, 580-KIDO, and the issue being Medicaid expansion. It has been approved, but at what cost? And when we're looking at funding Medicaid expansion, should there be a limit on it? Now, you remember the commercial for Prop 2. We're going to get free money. The state is going to be great. The feds fund it 90-10. Of course, that could change at any time. And it really kind of reminds me of when you pay your credit card bill. When you pay your credit card bill, and depending on your limit, it says you have thousands of dollars, or in Kevin Miller's case, hundreds of dollars left to spend. It doesn't mean you should spend it, but subconsciously it triggers you to saying, hey, I just made this payment. I can go back out and use the card. So funding Medicaid expansion and thinking about how much it's going to cost us is not really on a lot of people's minds. Why not put some type of limit on it? $400 million. $400 million would fund a lot of people's medical pay. Even more importantly, why not take a look at the markups? You know what the markup is on a soda? Actually, it's about a penny of the cost. Now, I understand the people that run the soda shop, they have to pay for the workers, they have to pay for health insurance, they have to pay for the government, they have to pay rent. But really, the cost in syrup is maybe a penny, maybe a half of a penny. So in the medical profession, and people in the medical profession are welcome to call in and correct me on this, there's a lot of markup. You got to pay for people that have no insurance. You have to pay for people that can't afford care. You have to pay for people that the insurance company decides to piece out on. So there's a ton of markup. As we were talking about earlier with Dave Petzo, you can go to Mexico and get the same surgery for $5,000 that costs you $20 or $25,000 here in the Treasure Valley. How does that work? That's number one. Number two, the idea that we still haven't really paid for Obamacare, right? And I forgot to ask Dave about this, the economic impact it has on business. The idea that business itself is going to have to pay for this. And then all of a sudden, if we can't afford workers, then all of a sudden more people are out of work and the cycle continues. But at 580-5436, 580-KIDO, when you think of and when you talk to your legislators, and look, from what I understand, they really like getting email from you, I would urge for a cap on Medicaid expansion. Because who's to say it doesn't go from 50 to 70 to 100,000 people? And if it's 100,000 people, who's going to pay for that? We don't have endless amounts of money, do we? At 580-5436, 580-KIDO. That is one topic. And again, I think that has the biggest impact on all of us than anything else we can talk about. Anything else we can talk about. You know, taxes are going up. Of course, now we've heard from our friends at Channel 7 that all of a sudden the returns are coming back, and that's a good thing. Yeah, it's a good thing. But if we're going to all have to work 5 or 6 jobs to pay for this stuff, is that really the type of government that we want here in the state of Idaho? And we're going to say, look, we voted on it. They sued. Medicaid expansion is here. But can't there be some type of limit to it? Should there be? 580-5436, 580-KIDO. I think that there should. I'd like to hear from legislators that agree with me on that. Number 2, the media wants to impeach the president. How is this news, Kevin Miller?
How many times did Mr. Trump ask you to threaten an individual or entity on his behalf?
Quite a few times.
50 times?
More.
100 times?
More.
200 times?
More.
500 times?
Probably.
That was more damning testimony to come out of Michael Cohen's 7-hour-long House hearing this week. He implicated the president in numerous crimes and even provided the committee with a copy of a $35,000 check he says Trump wrote to cover a hush money payment. This new information puts Democrats in an interesting position as they decide whether or not to move forward with impeachment proceedings. As NBC News First Read put it, quote, how do they reconcile their growing belief that President Trump has committed crimes, especially after Michael Cohen's testimony on Wednesday, with their hesitation/reluctance to consider impeachment?
So how does impeachment serve and benefit the United States of America? It simply doesn't. It simply does not. And all over the shows, all over the television, all over the radio, what do we hear? Impeachment, impeachment, impeachment. Katie Tur, who was spurned because she decided Hillary Clinton was going to win. She was going to be Hillary Clinton's Sean Hannity, and yet she is not Sean Hannity. She's stuck on MSNBC, some goofy network that many people don't watch. But here we have the media. Will the Democrats listen to their friends in the media urging impeachment? And those of us that covered Bill Clinton and Monica Lewinsky, this is totally different. This is totally different. The president at the time, William Jefferson Clinton, perjured himself under oath, lying about Monica Lewinsky in the Paula Jones deposition. I don't believe that Donald Trump has given any type of sworn testimony under oath. It's all seemingly and untoward and designed to distract us from really important events like North Korea, like the socialism. You know, here we are, the Stop Socialism Express with Kevin Miller. Could you ever believe, and I should have asked Dave Petzo this, and that's why we always love it when you call in, is the idea of the socialism. Could we ever believe in our time, in the year 2019, back in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, that socialism would be hip and fun and interactive and kids would drink it up like Pepsi back in the day? Right? This is what we're up against. And instead of focusing in on issues and excitement, we're focused in on tawdry details and the libs urging the Democrats to impeach the president.
Speaker Nancy Pelosi has avoided the question all week, and Democrats I've spoken with are hesitant to take a firm position.
We're going to wait for the Mueller report. I think that we've got to be cautious about it. Impeachment is the most serious thing that you can do in American democracy. So it's not ever something that you can take lightly.
Have you heard anything today that would lead you to believe that the president committed a high crime or misdemeanor?
Yes, but I'm not going to make a conclusion. I've heard evidence. Evidence is not a conclusion, but it's a reason to keep.
Evidence is not a conclusion. You know, Michael Cohen's testimony, what did that do except destroy the summit between Kim Jong-un, the dictator, and the president of the United States?
Looking and testing other accounts.
With us tonight, Anita Kumar, White House correspondent and associate editor for Politico, and Twitter's go-to presidential fact-checker, Daniel Dale, Washington bureau chief for the Toronto Star. Daniel, why are Democrats so hesitant to start impeachment proceedings? They have an abundance of avenues to take. There's the obstruction angle. There's Donald Trump's taxes, potentially, what they may hold. Michael Cohen accused him of committing a felony while he was the president of the United States. That's a lot more than they had with Nixon.
There we have it. That's a lot more they had with Nixon. Of course, Katie Tur wasn't alive when the Nixon Watergate scandal was going on. Many of these folks weren't alive when John Dean ratted out President Nixon. Sometimes the country is more important than a story. Sometimes the country is more important than getting the ratings. Sometimes, as John Kennedy said, you have to put the country before yourself. I wish that people in the media would understand that. Don't you? I wish that the people in the media would understand that impeaching the president is not something that we should take lightly. And the fact that convicted criminal, admitted liar, perjurer Michael Cohen, who went up before Congress to put on a show so he doesn't get even more years in prison, is not the word of a credible witness. And really, did Donald Trump break the law? I don't know. I do know that Andrew McCabe broke the law. I do know that James Comey had issues. I do know that Strzok and Page were fired. And I do know that the Republicans in Congress, when they had Congress, didn't do anything about it, didn't launch a special prosecutor investigation there. And yet the president is under fire, under siege. He addressed this at CPAC. You might have heard it here on KIDO Talk Radio.
I saw a little shifty Schiff yesterday. No, it's the first time. He went into a meeting, and he said, we're going to look into his finance. I said, where did that come from? He always talked about Russia. Collusion with Russia. The collusion delusion.
The collusion delusion. Two things going on. 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Number one, a limit on spending for Medicaid expansion. Number two, the collusion, the delusion, the coup to take down the president. I'd love for you to join the conversation next. Here's how you do it. 580-5436, 580-KIDO. You're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio.
The 3% is absolutely not a white supremacy group. We are not a white nationalist group.
Anthony Depew says this photo of him with Idaho Lieutenant Governor Janice McGeachin is being mischaracterized and blown out of proportion. Some are saying the hand gesture he and another member of the Idaho 3%ers is showing is a symbol of white supremacy. Depew, though, is adamant that it's not, and the context behind it is new to them.
Never occurred. We've been using our gesture for, I think, well before that symbol became a national political issue. So it's never been a thought to us.
The 3%ers say that they identify with the 3% of colonists that took up arms during the American Revolution. Like them, they today aspire to be true patriots fighting for the freedoms that the nation was founded on. That group was at the Capitol Thursday, some in orange jumpsuits, to draw awareness to Todd Engel, who last summer was sentenced to 14 years in prison for his role in a 2014 standoff near the Nevada ranch of anti-government activist Cliven Bundy.
I think it's absurd that we would be labeled white nationalists because we extend three fingers for a logo that's all over our attire.
It is a symbol of, or has been appropriated as a symbol of white power, and that is distressing to us.
Like many others, Senator Marianne Jordan sees the hand gesture as a symbol of white nationalism. In recent years, a very similar hand gesture to what's shown in the photo has been adopted by some white nationalist groups. Senator Jordan says the lieutenant governor should have known that.
When I saw the photo, I was concerned. I was concerned that, an elected official would not be a little bit more mindful of how they present themselves.
There we have it. So this broke down, Thursday, Friday? So Janice McGeachin, lieutenant governor, lovely young conservative lady, is posing with some folks that say, look, this guy, he's being held in prison. He's a political prisoner. He gets 14 years in jail for standing up for America, right? We've been there. We were the only folks that went to both Nevada and Oregon, so we're familiar with the case. So in this photo, you have Janice McGeachin saying "I" as the heart sign, and then you have these other guys in jumpsuits with the 3%. Now, I remember the old days, and apparently the 3%, when you do the 3, that's a racial thing. So as I said before early on the program, I'm watching the Lakers versus the Bucks. Some guy hits a 3, African-American athlete, just got $70 million over 4 years, something like that. He does the same sign. The same flippin' sign. Now, I don't think that if he knew that that was associated with racism, that he would be holding up the 3 that way. For most of us, this is a ridiculous story. For most of us, this is a way to embarrass the lieutenant governor. For most of us, we think back and saying, really, are there other secret signs that we should know about? And then you have a Boise lawmaker taking her to task. If this is that big of an issue, what is being served by making this public? Are we going to censor the lieutenant governor? Are we going to say that she can't pose with people exercising their First Amendment? Didn't Larry Flynt fight a case that was documented in a movie that the First Amendment doesn't have to be politically correct? Let's talk about it. First, traffic and weather together.
Next, it's Eric Everett.
Senator Jordan says that she has heard from a lot of people that they are very distraught about this. Some even commenting that they don't feel safe bringing their kids to the Capitol.
You know, I think these things are pretty common knowledge, and choosing to put these photographs out there is a call that I don't think most people would have made.
Right. How many people really are concerned about their safety at the state capitol? Holly in Caldwell joins us now. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Holly.
You know, I'm glad you're covering this issue, and I think that, you know, there isn't a finer woman in our government here in Idaho than Janice McGeachin. And obviously, the sign that they want to misinterpret did not mean that. I just want to remind people that Todd Engel didn't get to present his case because federal prosecutors and all those involved held them for months in jail, didn't give him evidence, didn't let them present a case. He was wrongfully convicted. And good patriots like Janice McGeachin and others who know the story there are obligated to represent the citizens of Idaho when government doesn't follow its own laws. And shame on KTVB for making this into saying she's anti-government. People who care about the country more than anything are people who care about the Constitution. And I don't know, I'm just very disappointed in that KTVB spreading that lie.
Well, when you take a look at this story, though, and it's been in other papers and other TV stations, as I said, I'm watching the NBA and the guys flashing the same thing. So how in the world, who determines what is appropriate and what isn't appropriate? And then all of a sudden we have the outrage and people making allegations that it's not safe at the Capitol.
Yeah, I'm kind of tired of people who want to push their own agenda, and if they don't like something, they just go to the media and try to smear the story the way they want. You know, you're right. Who says what free speech is? But obviously, I mean, if we want the government to follow the Constitution, it's not. And that's why so many of us are concerned about a convention of states, because they aren't even following the laws that they have. So what is another one on a piece of paper going to do?
Well, indeed. So do you expect a movement to censor the lieutenant governor?
You know, I don't know. I hope that people are smart enough. The biggest problem is the left is so organized, and the right, I think, is still in shock that this could happen, and they're out working and making a living. And even as far as I got an email back last week from a legislator that I don't know, you know, when we send in all these emails about pro-gun issues, and they're getting a ton of emails against guns in Idaho. And so she said, basically, we need to step up our game if we expect to keep our rights in those areas, because unfortunately conservatives, they might listen to talk radio, they might be concerned, but they generally don't organize and do anything.
You're saying that there are people from Idaho that are sending emails to legislators. These emails aren't from out of state. If that's the case,
she hasn't said that, but she hasn't said that. But she's just saying we need to step up our game because they're getting a ton of emails. So I'm sure.
Wait a minute. an elected official is there to represent us, if all of a sudden they're going to be influenced by emails, then maybe we need to get somebody in there with some guts.
Well, I agree, but what I'm hearing is in just the one particular email that she's just concerned that she's just notifying people that, hey, we're getting a lot of emails. She didn't identify where they came from. She didn't say whether they were in state, from out of state.
Sure.
I can't imagine there's a ton from in state.
Well, if there is, Holly, then we've got more to worry about. We've got more to work with because they're here. Are we up to the challenge? Let's talk about it next. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio.